Nope.
Is this better? All right. Okay, so I guess what I'm going to start with is just how, if I were judging a class of hogs, just how I would go about it. Okay? So the first of all is we have to pinpoint the differences between judging a meat class and whether it's a breeding class or a board class or a sow class or a gill class. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about the meat class today and how I'm going to judge these pigs or these hogs when they are being judged as a meat animal. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the top down. Okay? And one of the differences between sheep and pigs is that when Dr. Roper was up here talking about the rack and the loin, the differences is when we're looking at a pig, like we've got this one out here in the middle, is from the back of that front shoulder blade all the way to the break in the hand is the loinite area, or the LEA. Okay? And I'm going to go across the top of this pig and I'm going to look at how wide it is, because when Dr. Roper pointed out in the sheep class, we first look at muscle. We're going to look at that lean to fat ratio, conditioning. Okay? When this thing is hanging on the rack, when this is a hot carcass, what are we going to see? Are we going to see muscle? Are we going to see the difference between muscle and fat? Or are we going to see all fat? We want a good combination of muscle and fat. And where we see width, where we see power, is where we see muscle. So I'm going to get behind that animal, and I'm going to look down the top of its back, and I'm going to look for width in that loin-eye area. Okay? If we want to get a little bit pickier, we're going to look across the 10th rib. And if we don't know where the 10th rib is, that's fine, because we're just going to look down the center of the back. Okay? We're going to look down the center of the back, and we're going to say this is the place where we are going to be able to judge or determine how wide that hog really is, how much muscle is in that loin-eye area. Because that's a good cut of meat, and that's where we want a lot of width, a lot of product. So, when I'm looking at this class, when I'm looking at this, I'm going to get behind it and I'm going to look down its back from the top of its head down to its hand, and I'm going to say, where's the width? So then, when I'm looking at it, I'm going to go from the back and I'm going to look down at the dimension of ham. And so I'm going to get behind it and I want to know how long that ham is, because guess what? That is the best cut of meat, the best place to find product in a pig. Alright? So I'm going to get behind it and I'm going to go from the tail head and I'm going to go down to where that ham gets into that back part of the leg here. Alright, so right from the top all the way down to the back. So, that's another place to find a lot of good product, a lot of meat, a lot of muscle, a lot of power. Alright? So, we start from the front, we head to the back, we've looked at the width across the top, we've looked at the width down the ham, the length of the ham. Now I'm going to go to its base. So another place to find width, another place to find muscle is their base. And the more muscle, the more stuff they have across their chest, across their back, the wider their feet are going to walk. Okay? They're not going to be narrow in their feet when they've got a lot of muscle. They're going to have a lot of muscle, they're going to have a lot of width in their feet. So that's the next place that I'm going to look. How muscular really is this thing? How muscular is this hog? Well, I'll find out by looking. You can see right here in this one, that this one's carrying a lot more product because of its base, because of the width at its base compared to maybe this one right here. Okay, so looking for width again, for that muscle. So far so good? Any questions? Am I going too fast? Does this make sense? Okay. So we went from the front to the back, and now we're looking kind of at the base, and we're moving up. So another good point of emphasis is we've talked about where to be as a judge. Okay, that's really important because unlike the other species, we have to work harder as judges to get the angles that we want, right? We can't say, hey, move that steer, take it away from me. Or, this is how it goes, we've got a routine in the ring, and the people, the showmen are going to bring the steer in, and they're going to walk in the profile, and they're going to go around, and they're going to be able to control it. We have to work harder as judges to get the angles that we want because these animals are moving free. So, it's really important to make sure you get the angles that's going to give you the best idea to which animal is the best. So we talked about it walking away. We talked about dimension, width. We talked about Looking at the base, again, the width. Another good profile, or another good place to be is on their profile. Because that's where we see that length of body. Okay? The longer the loin area, the more product, the more muscle. So if we were to move this pig, we want to see the profile, we want to see the length. Okay? Because the length gives product, the length gives meat. And that's what we're looking for, that muscle. Alright, so we want to see them walking away, we want to see them on their profile, and then we want that pig to be driven right at us, because that's another thing where we can see that width. And here is the final thing. If we're trying to determine between two pigs, who's going to be the top, who's going to be first, who's going to be second, we can find out where we get to that conditioning point. Who's got too much condition? Does everybody know what I mean by condition? The fat, the stuff that we don't necessarily want too much of. Okay? So we're going to look in that jowl. So here's where we start. We start looking for things that maybe we don't want. So we don't want a lot of conditioning. We're going to see that in that jowl. That's where pigs really carry a lot of their excess conditioning. Alright? So we can see that when they're driven towards us, when they're driven on the profile. Okay? So for meat animals, like Dr. Roper said, we're looking for muscle, lean to fat ratio first. Okay? Now we're going to move into structure. So can these animals move? Will they be able, like Dr. Roper said, to get across the feedlot, to get to the feeder, to eat? Will they be able to get on the truck? So it's not a priority, but here and again, if we've got two pigs that are really close, we're saying, well, from what I can see, there's a good amount of the same muscle on both. There's a good amount of the same conditioning. They both look like they're pretty close. Let's move into structure. Who can walk? All right? So we want to see how they move on their feet. We want to see who's up on their feet, who's moving freely, who's moving easily. A lot of times in the meat animal class, or if you hear about this stress gene that has hit the pig industry, we'll look for somebody breaking over their shoulder, or breaking in the shoulder. And that's when their shoulder blades come up real high, and they start getting too high in their toes. Okay? That is a structural problem, because they're not going to be able to walk when it comes time to get to that feeder, or to get on the truck. So we want to make sure that our animal is structurally sound when it's moving around the ring. It's not a priority, because this is a meat animal class, but it does make a big difference between placing it first, placing it second, or third, or fourth. Okay, so we want to look at structure. And then finally, I'll start wrapping things up, is we want them to be pretty. These are pigs, they're already beautiful in their own kind, but we want them to be pretty too. Okay, so who is the most attractive barrow? Who is the most attractive gill across the ring? So what do I mean by attractive? So this is where we get the flank, the jowl. Who is the best condition? So let's pick one out. So if we were to look at this one right here, we were looking for attractiveness in flank. We're looking for attractiveness in the jowl. We're looking to see who just looks pretty. Okay? Who's got, this is a really good one. Who on the profile is walking with a really tight rib cage? Who in the profile, or who from behind is walking and who's walking with solid feet? You know, their back legs they're not cutting in, they're not cutting out. Who looks pretty? Okay, so that's kind of our final one. What we want to go meat, lean to fat, then structure, and then appearance. Okay? Look for width, look for power, look for meat, look for muscularity. Any questions? Does that make sense? All right. All right, so I guess now I'm going to talk about breeding goats. Is this fine? So, we just talked a little bit about the meat animal, looking for meat. All right, so we kind of rank them as meat, conditioning, structure, and appearance. Well, now we're going to talk about durability. We're going to talk about longevity.